we're built to be problem solvers. We're not very good at memory.
Yeah,
That's not our
yeah.
thing. AI can handle memory because it stores it in a memory.
I learned the importance of hard work. I learned the importance of precision. I
Yeah.
learned the importance of how to scale things. In a factory, you cannot make one widget or two widgets. You have to make like 10,000 a day,
How would you recommend utilizing AI today?
so that I can get maximum traction, I can get maximum sales, I can get higher
Yeah.
valuations.
Welcome back, everybody, to Founders Corner. In today's episode, I have a very special guest for you guys, a absolute expert in the world of AI. His name is Manuj, and he is from Tetranoodle, and he is here to talk to us about the impact and the importance of AI, especially when it comes to startups and how startups can actually take advantage of AI to help themselves. Manuj, welcome. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Manush, it's kind of funny is when we were first originally talking, when we first met, you kind of, explained what you do and it was like, okay, this guy's impressive. And then I got to know you more and then it's like, wow, this guy is very impressive. So why don't you give us a little backstory as to where Manush came from? Because I love that story. That to me is a startup story.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in India. If people can tell from my accent, I grew up in India, and it was a small town. A lot of struggles. I started working in a factory at age 15,
Wow.
and I was making $2 a day, and working 12 hours a day. 6 days a week, and yeah, it was quite a experience. Uh, I, I I learned the importance of hard work. I learned the importance of precision. I
Yeah.
learned the importance of how to scale things, because in a factory you cannot make one widget or two widgets. You have to make like 10,000 a day, and
Yeah.
there's a process. Like everything sort of depends upon the process running smoothly. Um, but it was a huge struggle, without any resources and all that. And one day I was just sort of flipping through some business magazines during lunch hour,
Yeah.
and I looked at these stories of these tycoons, making the waves in the world of business and earning like millions of dollars, building all these massive giant companies. I'm like, what do these people have that I don't have? Like, these are human beings just like me. I don't know how these people do it. And so that thought left an impression in me. I mean, obviously, at that time, at age 15, like, I was like a pipe dream. I was like, okay, let's get back to work now after lunch.
Yeah.
But it sort of triggered something in my mind. And
And
I
you
said,
were
hey,
sorry, you were 15 at this point.
yeah, around like,
So
something
you
like
were
6.
you were ambitious.
Yeah.
I
I
love it.
mean, like, I will say, like, stupidly, romantically ambitious, it's like,
uh,
there
hopeless
is no.
romantic is what we call that in the love world and in the business world. So,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, and then I found my love for computers. Like, this again, as I said, it was a small town. There was not even a decent university or a college in that town, and computer institute opened up. I could not enroll in the first year because the fee was like more than my year's salary.
right.
The next year I came. I sort of, I was able to pay for the fee, and then I found my love for computers, and I said, okay, this is exactly what I'm gonna do. And yeah, the rest is history. Like, I came to Canada, started working with a lot of startups, Fortune 500 companies, Microsoft, IBM, Pearson Education. Today, I have 4 patents in AI,
Yeah.
and I've helped all these companies generate like hundreds of millions of dollars with the technology that I've created.
Wow. And then you also mentioned you speak at UN as well
Yeah,
for
yeah.
AI efficacy, right?
Yeah. So that was a great opportunity. I met an executive from UK, and they organize a lot of these UN related events where they are focused on SDGs.
Yep.
The goals that UN has set from the uh, I think it was 2015 Paris Accord, where
Hmm.
all the nations came together, and they said, we need to do something about equality, climate change, all of these big problems. And so that's a big agenda for a lot of countries, a lot of organizations. So, and AI is something that is instrumental in achieving those goals.
I
And
agree.
so I talked about equality and things of that nature. It was a great experience, talking to these people and standing alongside Nobel Prize winners and things like that. It was amazing.
That must have been an experience. So, Manush, like I love your perspective on AI, because what I love about it is the fact that you actually understand it very well. You do it, and thirdly, you can actually explain it to someone in layman's term. So,
Mhm.
a lot of it actually kind of bothers me. I don't know if it bothers you, but a lot of people misuse the word AI and where it's being placed. So what
Mhm.
do you mind just giving our listeners a quick rundown as to what is machine learning, deep AI, what
Mhm.
is algorithm? Just a run
Yeah,
through.
yeah. See, our mind is a pattern recognizing machine, right? So even as a child, if a child touches a hot stove,
Mm-hmm.
they need to just touch it once, and then they know, oh, this is going to hurt me, I shouldn't really touch this again.
Yeah.
And that's the data point that is recorded in our mind, and we remember it. But now let's assume that child is like in a very cold climate somewhere in Antarctica. The wind chill factor is really, wind is really cold. He's wearing heat resistant gloves. So
Yeah.
there are multiple factors now in that situation. And now, if you touch the stove, it's not going to really hurt you. It may feel a little bit warm. Actually, it may feel a little bit pleasant in that climate, right?
Right.
So now you can extrapolate, like all these parameters start to add up, and our mind is not able to. I mean, if you are really intelligent, really tuned in, maybe you can factor in 10, 12 parameters. But let's say now you're working on a humongous problem. You're saying, okay, what is the weather going to be like in 14 days? Now
Right.
that depends on Earth's movements and sun's activity, moon,
That's right.
oceans, all of that stuff. And there is no way the human mind can like really understand how to put together all these parameters and find those patterns. And that's where machine learning AI comes in, where it if we feed enough data about all these parameters, and it could be millions and millions of parameters, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be limited. The machine can really sort through tons and tons of data and find those patterns that our human mind is not able to recognize. So
Yeah.
that's
That's how
that's
I always
basically
say it too. Actually, that's a very, very. I love that you use the child analogy because it really is a child,
yeah, yeah,
especially at its infancy. At the very beginning, it's a child. You have to feed it so much data so that it can continuously learn based
yeah,
on touching the stove. Okay, that didn't work here, but maybe
yeah,
touching the heat over here might work, right? Um,
yeah.
and that takes millions of data sets to be able to analyze that. So I love the child analogy. And I mean, at the end of the day, Manush, you're right. We're built to be problem solvers. We're not very good at memory. that's not
Yeah,
uh
yeah,
that's not our
yeah.
thing. AI can handle memory because it stores it in a memory.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And if you look at the the evolution of technology as well, like we used to calculate things by hand, like in during
Yep.
when we create accounting books and all that. But now everything is the calculators came along, and we didn't need to like calculate it by hand. I still remember, I used to be penalized if I took a calculator to my exam, right?
Yes,
Like
that's right.
they forced you to calculate it by hand.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, buy the scientific calculator, and off you go. You don't need to
Yeah.
remember anything. And now computers are taking over, and even the mundane tasks are done by computers. So as technology evolves, as you said, like our minds are freeing up to do the things that we are good at, and let the machines do what they are good at.
Yes. What would you say to people who are trying to compare algorithms to AI? Because that is something that's regularly misconstrued too, right? They go, well, no, we're gonna get an AI, so we have to build an algorithm. And my argument is always those are two completely very different things, right?
I think
Algorithm is more statistics, and an AI is you feed it all the data, it figures it out.
see, the thing is that algorithms are building blocks for AI.
Correct.
So
Yes, I agree with that.
so AI will actually utilize the algorithms to make the decisions,
Right.
to say, okay, this is the answer, given this input, this is the answer. And so you can consider, like, when we create an artificial intelligence, it is itself is an amalgamation of multiple algorithms, right?
Right.
So we can say, hey, we are looking for cancer diagnosis, and we are going to feed it like hundreds and thousands of x-ray images to figure out, how it can determine whether somebody has cancer or not, right?
Right.
And uh, there will be multiple algorithms needed, because one algorithm will decipher all the pixels in the image. The next one will figure out, the shading of the colors of the skin and whatnot.
Right.
The next one will break it up into like numbers and all that.
Correct.
So there's going to be a series of algorithms which will work in sequence to get the output. And this is exactly how our mind works as well, right?
Yeah. Hence the stereotypes, right? The stereotypes is based on us using our algorithm that we built in our heads based
Yeah, yeah,
on particular, gender or race or whatever, which
exactly.
is why the bias kicks in. So
Yeah,
that's where I want to take the next conversation. What are your thoughts about AI bias? Because the way I look at it is that in a lot of situations where AI is becoming biased or in sexist or whatever or race oriented, theoretically it's doing exactly what we do ourselves,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where we also do the exact same thing, where we go, well, I've seen, let's say I've seen 10 people from France, and they're all 8 out of 10 of them are exactly like what I assumed. So in your
yeah.
mind you immediately say, okay, the pattern is
Mhm.
that most French people are like this, right? So what are your thoughts about bias and how that's going to play a role in AI for businesses and even startups?
So you absolutely nailed it on the head. Like, the AI is not doing anything inherently wrong. It's us who
Yeah.
are doing something wrong. And you can imagine, we earlier said that AI needs to be fed a lot of data, right? So
Correct.
when we feed it real world data is based on our activity, our
That's right.
perceptions,
Yeah.
whatever humans act the way that we do,
Yeah.
and that generates the data, and then AI is learning from that data. So it's
Correct.
not the AI's fault, it's our fault. So
Right.
we need to correct ourselves, remove the bias, which I don't know whether that will happen or not. So people who are, quick to judge, hey, oh, look, the AI is doing something wrong here, they fail to look at themselves and say, okay, what are we doing as a society
I love
that
that.
is feeding it this, right? So that's the thing.
So you believe that AI is inherently um, just challenging us as humans to say, look, yes, there might be stereotypes, there might be racism, but at the end of the day, all we're doing is picking up patterns just like AI is. So
Exactly.
instead of looking at ourselves, we're really just going, no, no, that's the AI's fault. So one thing I want to talk to you about is Amazon. Like this was kind of a big case where they executed an AI pattern recognition essentially, um, that basically was rejecting female developers over males because that's what males were internally. What are your like how do you remove those biases though? Like that's really the question is. I know, and that's a, that's a
Yeah.
philosophical question, so I know this is a conversation, but you know what I mean? Like is that wrong? Is like how do you adjust for that? Because we make the same judgments, to be frank. Like I
Yeah.
know for a fact, like in interviews where a female found or a female developer might come in and a lot of interviewers will immediately make a judgment in their heads, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
what do you think of that?
See, the thing is that you need anything like this. I mean, take democracy for example, right?
Yep.
Democracy is similar to AI. Like, in democracy, you will vote for a certain candidate based on whether you belong to a certain economic class, socio-economic class, whatever that is, that
Mm-hmm.
affinity you had towards the candidate. But now you have oversight from the other opposition party, who can counter the argument and say, hey, by the way, this person is not as good as you think he is
Mm-hmm.
because of this.
Right.
Now when you bring it back to the Amazon example, if a person who is in charge of hiring has a bias and they are also in charge of creating the AI algorithm,
Right.
there's no oversight, then
Right.
obviously the bias is going to kick in. So if you want to have relatively unbiased algorithm, then you need to get two or three people or parties involved and say, hey, this is the outcome we are looking for. What do you think?
Uh-huh.
What are some of the biases that we should be looking out for? And then you can actively remove that bias from the input data, right? So let's say in this case, you can clearly see that Amazon hired X number of male developers versus Y number of female developers. Now, if you want to remove that bias, you will say, okay, let's compensate for the higher percentage of male developers, and so that the AI can learn that equal a number of males and females are actually better, and and
Uh-huh.
and
So you're
and then
actually creating, you're actually inserting diversity algorithm in
yeah,
there. That's very
yeah,
neat because that's exactly, you know what's funny, a lot of philosophers and especially society, I don't even know what they're called, I think, but basically people who are trying to work out how society works best together, diversity is the number one thing they always mention. Again,
absolutely.
you're right, because at the end of the day, that diversity factor in building the AI inherently affects the AI to become a diversity thinker. Interesting. Okay, I
Exactly,
love that. That's a
exactly.
really interesting point.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, when you build these kind of algorithms, you have to step outside and look at the broader picture, because there are scientific studies out there which actually uh, prove that diversity and inclusion actually helps teams perform better.
I agree.
So,
100%.
if
Yeah.
yeah, so if you have a diverse team, people coming from different economic
Backgrounds.
background, social
Yeah.
background, nationalities, you'll have a diverse set of ideas. There will not be a group think where people say, okay, go jump off the cliff, everybody will say, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do it. Um, but but so so when you bring these ideas together, then
Mhm.
AI will automatically become less and less biased. I don't believe it is possible to have it like completely unbiased, because that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
And but doing these kind of things, you can actually like reduce the bias.
Interesting. What would you say is the most exciting AI technology that's coming out that you're, because right now we're in a scenario of flooded AI. That's what I call it. I call it the gold rush of AI. And there's so many different kind of AIs coming out, like the picture, Dolly 2, you got ChatGPT. Those are from the same person, I realize. But you got like companies doing like pitch decks. You got AI doing, to be frank, I've tried these, like I would call them all very rudimentary. I think
Yeah,
people are kind of blowing it up more than what it actually can do. I think it's a good
yeah.
starting point, a good tool for users to use. But what are your thoughts? Like what's exciting for you the most? I would say in the next 5 years.
Okay, so the fundamental thing people have to realize is that the game changer is something called these large language models. Okay, so large language
Yes,
model is OpenAI. OpenAI, and everything that you mentioned, creating images and pitch decks and all that. The underlying technology is
natural
large
language.
language model.
Yeah,
Okay, so what large language model means, basically what they have done is they have taken the entire written history of humankind, everything that people have written in books, in scriptures, and on the internet, blah blah blah,
yeah,
everything, and it has digested it and became learned from it, meaning it knows what people have throughout the ages have understood. It's different than Google, because Google basically just indexed it, and it if you some information, it knows where to find it. But
yeah,
with large language models, it can actually understand what you're asking it, and then it can respond to it. So you can consider it as like an infinite wisdom, infinite intelligence,
yeah.
right? Now, this is the first step toward artificial general intelligence, meaning in AI so far has been really good at one task, right? So if it's predicting weather, if it's predicting your
Yes.
sales
Yep.
cycles, whatever that is,
Yep.
it's really good at that. But artificial general intelligence will be good at everything a human can do. So what you have seen now is a glimpse of what an artificial general intelligence will look like. You've seen it in movies and Hollywood movies and all that.
Yeah.
It can do basically everything that the human can do and better. So that's where we are going. My thought originally used to be like, we are about 50 years away from AGI. Like 50 years it'll take for artificial general intelligence to come. But
Yes.
with the open AIs, these chat GPT and all of these things, I feel like we are much much closer. In fact, we may have some form of AGI in the next 5 years. So
Wow.
that's what I'm really excited about. But even today, if people understand how to use chat GPT and all that, it can replace a lot of um,
The heavy lifting.
how can I say,
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
effort, and it can do it much better. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm really excited about. But a lot of people don't understand what this is, what this means, how to
I
use
agree.
it, and all that stuff. And it is natural because everything that is popping up is rudimentary. It's first version of, first glimpse of what it will look like. It's very similar to going back to, if people are old enough to, to 1990s, when the internet sort of started becoming more popular, and
Yeah.
people were saying, oh, what's a website? I don't know whether I need a website. Okay, let me put together a web page. And it used to be like just a bunch of like links, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's where we are at now. 20 years ahead, now we have like mobile phones, we have apps, and like all kinds of things happening, right?
Yeah.
So 20 years from now, this the way that we are talking about creating pitch decks and all that, it'll be like, you just think of it and it's done. You
Right.
don't need like even troubleshoot it, or you need to edit it or anything. Like, you just say, okay, this is what I want to say, like get it done, and then it'll happen.
So one thing I always say in the natural language processing is, like there's a lot of headwind coming towards open or chat GPT, right? With it getting sassy with you, or, it's getting a little more aggressive, or telling you to break up your marriage. The way I look at it is, a lot of people are kind of freaking out because they believe, and this is a wrong impression, is that chat GPT is exactly what you said. It's a natural language processor, not a general machine learning that has learned and understands what you're, right. So all it's doing is basically understanding, like going back in history, reading everything on the internet, and learning based on communication. So if I was a generalist and you're asking me a question, I'm going to go back into my memory, think of what I know about that, right? And just spit it out back at you. I'm not trying to understand what it is you're saying and then respond, right? I think that's where a lot of people get the chat GPT thing wrong, where they think it's a general machine learning that understands and reacts, but it's really just like, it's learning it's understanding what you're saying and basically bringing the information you need. Is that fair
Yeah.
analysis of it?
So I will that's correct.
Break it
I will
down.
try to like give a different perspective for
Yes.
people, so that they can really understand how to use it properly. See, as I said earlier, so consider this to be an infinitely intelligent person.
Yep.
Okay, if you ask a stupid
Knows
question to this
everything.
person, you'll get a
Yes.
stupid answer,
Yes.
right? So get better at asking better questions, because if you say, hey, should I break up my marriage, it's gonna say, wow, I mean,
Yeah.
if
It
these are
sounds
the
like you're
facts,
unhappy. It makes sense.
you know do it.
Yeah.
But like, so ask a better question. Okay, I'm going through this, what is your recommendation for me to feel better, or how to fix this? you know it will give you the right answer. So
Right.
all I tell people, if you want to use these, and as it gets smarter and smarter, people will need to get better at asking questions. Because if we look at our education system, we have not been trained to like handle this kind of stuff, right?
No.
We have not been trained to ask questions.
No.
If you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
we are taught a certain subject and we say, did you memorize it? I'm going to test you what you memorize. But
Yes.
it is never encouraged for us to step outside the boundary and question, hey, is this real? What should be my choice here? So it's an unfortunate thing, but the thing is, uh, as this gets more and more powerful, people will need to get better at asking questions. Otherwise, they will be left behind. And people who can ask better questions, imagine the power they have at their hand, because now they can like infinitely multiply their own intelligence
Yeah.
by it's like tapping into it. It's like if you want to lift heavy weight, you can get a crane and increase your capability by thousands of percent to lift heavy weights. It's
Yeah.
the same thing for your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that analogy. You do have to ask better questions. It's not just asking the question, but how you ask it and what you're trying to
Yeah.
get as an end result. Because at the end of the day, that is what it's also looking for, right? Is what are you trying? What's the point of this conversation, right? So, what would you like? I'm a startup. Our listeners are startups. How would you recommend utilizing AI today for them? Let's talk operationally first, because that's what you're
Yeah.
doing, right? With your organization, that's essentially the plan is help startups
Yeah.
bring it together and be able to utilize technology to be able to ask it better questions, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
and two, be able to get the answers they're looking for and to be able to build on top of it. So what would you
Exactly.
recommend?
See, let's start with the startup founders journey. First question is, okay. First question startup founders have is, what should I like? What should be my product? What should be my service? Like, what is it that I want to build so that I can get maximum traction? I can get maximum sales. I can get higher
Yeah.
valuations. And generally we start to talk to friends and family, start to like notice the world around us a little bit, and we say, oh, that seems like a good idea. Like, I'll let me create like 3D printed shoes.
Yeah.
Looks like a great idea. And then we start on the journey of creating all that, only to find out later nobody's interested in this, right? So,
Happens a lot.
right.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why 95% of the startups fail.
Yeah.
Now, imagine you can go to an AI and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I have an idea for 3D printing shoes. Can you tell me what are the pros and cons of this? Right.
Right.
And now, in before AI, you would have had to find a very, very experienced person from the shoe industry who knows the market very well, to be able to give you an intelligent that, hey, this idea
Yeah.
seems like good, this is a good idea, but you need to focus on this, you need to focus on this, these are the manufacturing costs, this is how big the market looks like, and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But now you can go to the AI and say, hey, this is my idea, can you give me an estimate for what kind of demand I can expect, what kind of what are the steps I need to take to create this 3D printed shoe,
Right.
or something along the line. Right? Now you are much more informed without even breaking a sweat, without even investing a dime into this. And as you make more and more progress, you can ask more and more questions, and it's like having a very wise advisor. Like, uh,
Yeah. That knows the
startup
entire
founders, they
internet.
have advisory boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So startup founders have advisory boards, right?
Yeah.
To tell where they are going wrong and whatnot. So consider this as a very powerful, very intelligent advisory board that you have at your fingertips. Not only advisory board, but employee. So you can say, hey, okay, I've created this startup now. Now I need some sales techniques. How do I get my customers? It'll
Right.
tell you, okay, do these things. It'll give you all these suggestions about optimizing your operations, optimizing your marketing, optimizing your messaging for marketing itself. uh, all of this stuff is like, it's amazingly powerful, that can really accelerate people's growth.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very hopeful for like an AI advisory board. That's going to be very cool to see in the future. Which I think, like you said, we could be 5 years to get that. But one of the biggest things I use AI for is like building out, because we build a lot of products, right? Like we build software
Yeah.
for our customers all the time, and whenever you're building a product for a customer, you have to understand their user. And we always build our user personas from ChatGPT. So
Mhm.
we actually utilize it significantly, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting. Like we still have to like kind of like get in there and kind of make some adjustments, but man, is it accurate? And if you ask it correctly, like what you were trying to look for, like what are
Yeah.
their biggest challenges, and then it like spits it out. Okay, but what are
Yeah.
all the challenges in tech, right? Then it
Yeah.
spits it even more, right? So it's quite impressive, and I agree with you in the sense that AI can be huge for startups to really learn and understand what it is they're trying to build, especially at an early stage. Um,
It's,
that being said, what are your thoughts around like what do you think AI is going to impact next in terms of industries? What do you think is the biggest impacted industry that's coming down the pipeline?
I don't think there is any industry that is not going to be disrupted. So
Fair.
I think the answer is the reverse. Like which industry is not? I don't think there's going to be any industry that's
Construction
not going to be.
workers.
Um, Actually, it's not true because
I
AI
know.
is already being used in construction as well.
Right.
Like, see, the world we are going in now is going to be hyper personalized. Okay,
Yes.
so because of industrialization, we had to produce goods at mass scale,
Correct.
and because of that, we had to uh, stick to the least common denominator. Meaning, take again the shoe example, right? So you go to a shoe store or buy online, whatever it is, you'll get 12 sizes
Hmm.
of shoes, whatever. So you'll say, okay, this shoe doesn't fit me perfectly, but the closest size is 10, men's 10, and that's the one I'm going to buy.
Right.
That's the world we live in today, right? Because of all the constraints for mass manufacturing and all that. But imagine now with AI, the you can order a shoe made to fit your true size, right? You can order food made to fit your genomic sort of like a structure of your
Right.
genes, which will suit you well and nourish you the most. You can order a custom medicine that is designed for your specific problem with
Very
zero
interesting.
side effects.
Yeah.
Like today you listen to all these like advertisements about medicine, and towards the end they say, oh, you
Here.
may experience these side effects, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
um, and the reason is because what they have done is they have invented a drug which will work for majority of the population, but
80% or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, but some of them will have side effects, right? So now you can imagine if we start to move away from mass manufacturing and start to go into personalized personalized manufacturing or personalized goods. um, Everything that we buy will be custom made for us, right? And
Yeah.
so you can imagine that that will apply to pretty much every industry.
That's actually a very interesting point. So you're saying the fourth revolution, because the third was industrialization. You think fourth revolution is not the internet, but the personalization industry.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
See,
Okay.
internet is the backbone of all of
Yeah.
this, right? Without that,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
without that, it's not possible. So it's like, you create a highway system for people to start communicating, and business starts to flourish. Internet is like the information highway, and on
Correct.
top of this, all these technologies are getting built up, and the end result is this hyper personalization.
Amazing. Manush, I love having conversations with you about AI. Like I said, you're very intelligent and you're able to portray that intelligence in a very simplified form, which is really nice because I know like a lot of people, it's hard for them to understand what AI is because of how it's explained. And it's always very
Yeah.
technical. So I appreciate you
But believe
always.
me, if you talked to me 3 years ago, you couldn't. I had to work really hard to
So
like really.
you've learned
Yeah,
dumb it down for others. I love it.
yeah.
Um,
And
and
actually AI helped me do that.
yeah. So you're a preacher and you use it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's good.
exactly.
That's a solid point. So
Yeah.
Manush, what can, like, let's say a startup is sitting there going, well, okay, great. I like all this stuff, but how do I ask the right questions? How do they get involved with you and your organization? Because I know that's what you guys help with.
Yeah, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn, or visit my website, my personal website, manujagarwal.com or tetranoodle.com. The easiest thing is just search for me on LinkedIn, connect with me, let me know that you heard me here and what kind of problems you are working on. But
Amazing.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the best way to get in touch.
Awesome. Manush, thank you so much. We do have to definitely do another episode down the line because I think we have like 10 more conversations to be had.
Of course, of course. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you. I'm going to come to see you in Vancouver soon. So I'm very excited for that as well. For anyone
Absolutely.
that is wondering what that means, we're actually doing an in-person workshop with Manush in April. So, that'll be posted on our website and also on Eventbrite. So if you're interested and you want to come and meet Manush in person or meet me in person, I'm not as famous as he is, but if you want to meet him in person, that's the place to do it. Manush, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, to everybody else with the Founders Corner, thank you all for tuning in with an episode with Manush on AI and how that can help you as a startup, and also how you can utilize AI to blow your business up and actually get it going. And like he said, to avoid being the 95% not doing research before you start. So until next time, please let me like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Have a great day. Corridor out.